one. And number two, because there's some new people today that were not here last Sabbath. So even though I'm not going to go through everything we went last Sabbath, but there's some key points that are important to what we talked about. So, number one, we are in a great controversy. Do we agree on that? Yes. Okay, we are in a great controversy. Ephesians 6:12, and we studied that this morning, or at least we read it this morning in the lesson, says, can somebody see it and can read it? For we, but, against, so this is not us, right? This is a battle that is being waged at a universal level between good and evil. If you remember the lesson from last quarter, the very first lesson, the name was Jesus Wins. So we know already that Jesus is winning, right? In the meantime, we're still here battling, right? So one of the things that we mentioned is that Satan is using our finances to keep us away of our relationship from God. We are sometimes so concerned for what we don't have that we spend so much time trying to figure out what we're going to do, time that we could use to strengthen our relationship with God. Or we have so much that we get disconnected because we don't feel that we need God anymore. We have everything. He's given me everything, so, what do I need to go there, right? So something else that we learned was the fact that sometimes we think that, hey, as soon as I get some more money, I'm going to pay all my debt and I'm going to be okay. And I don't know if you've heard anybody say that. I think everybody that plays the lottery has that in mind. The minute I win, and I don't know if you've heard people say, Christians, when I win, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give money to church. I would love to do a research and see how many of the people that said that actually followed through and did it. Okay? But we hear this. Now, we know, again, because of research that has been done, that the more you have, the more you... But interestingly enough, we as Adventists don't need any of that research, because Ellen G. White had said in Testimonies for the Church, if riches increase, men, even those professing godliness, set their hearts upon them, right? Upon those riches. And then, the more they have, the less they give into the treasury of the Lord. Why? Because the more we have, the more we spend. Right? Thus, she says, riches make men selfish, and hoarding feeds covetousness. And here's the part. And these evils, talking about being selfish and being covetous, these evils strengthen by active exercise. Translation: the more you spend, right, the more your desire to continue spending grows. And we gave a few examples last time. There is something on sale. And if there is something on sale, what happens? We have to buy it because it's on sale. It's never going to be at this price again, even though 2 weeks later it's cheaper. But anyway, nobody's talking about that part, right? Exactly. So the next time you go and you see a sale and you go buy something, what's going to happen the next time you see a sale? It's just easier, right? It's a sale. I have to buy it. Okay? And we go through that. So she continues saying, God knows our danger and has hedged us about with means to prevent out our own ruin. He requires the constant exercise of benevolence. And notice the word she chose. She didn't say the constant exercise of giving tithe. It's not what it says. The constant exercise of giving offerings. It's not what it says. It says the constant exercise of benevolence. And benevolence comes in many flavors. It can be money, of course, but it can also be your time. Okay? It can also be just being there for a friend. You know, if there's something, this is a parenthesis, that I have learned, is that there is so many people in our church, and hopefully in this church that doesn't happen, but there's so many people in church that are hurting, and we never know. Never know, because they will not tell anybody. They come to church on Sabbath, they're smiling. You know, how are you doing? I'm doing great. And you will never know what is really going on. Okay? So benevolence comes in many different ways. So constant exercise of benevolence, that the force of habit in good works, may break the force of habit in the opposite direction. In other words, just like spending and spending and spending just makes that grow, being benevolent more and more and more helps you grow in that direction, which is opposite to what she calls the evils. Okay? So we talked about consequences of being in debt. Okay? People get anxious. People get stressed out. I don't know, at least of anybody that I've talked to, that owes a lot of money that is not stressed out. Okay, I don't see it. I mean, it could happen. Could be somebody out there that is up to here in debt and not be, no stress about it. No problem. Money will come from somewhere. They take my house, it's okay. Not a problem. They repossess my car, I'll take the bicycle. So there may be somebody out there, I respect that. But the majority of the people that I have talked to, if they are in debt, and what I'm talking about debt is debt that they cannot manage, right? They are normally stressed out. And that then leads to depression, okay? Or could lead to depression. I mean, it's leads, but could lead to depression. There are things like compulsive buying. We just talked about the sales, but there was a time, okay, because I told you, I suffer from this too, right? I could not go into a computer store and come out empty-handed. I just could not, okay? If I walked into a computer store, to the point that my family, for my birthday or Christmas or whatever, they would give me gift certificates to the store. But that wasn't the gift. The gift was not the gift certificate. The gift was taking me to the computer store and leaving me there for 2 or 3 hours for me to go spend the gift certificate. That was the gift. So we go through this, right? There's an even, I say, more difficult situation, which is when you have debt denial. You're in debt up to your neck, but if somebody asks you, oh no, I'm not in debt. I'm paying every month. I'm okay. I have no problem. Right? And by the way, there's something I haven't said for the people that are new here today. I said this last time. I promise you that I do not know the financial situation of anybody here. So if I'm giving you an example, please don't take it personal. If it just happens that's your situation, I'm not talking about you, because I don't know what your situation is. Okay? I'm just using examples of things that either I have seen or that I have read. Okay, is that fair? So please, nobody takes anything I say personal, unless I look at you and said, hey, you, then that's different, right? Right. And there's only one person here that I know her financial situation, sitting over there. And I'm not gonna talk about that. Remember those black eyes we talked about last Sabbath? Yeah. I don't want one of those. Anyway, so sometimes we have low self-esteem. And that takes us to, and Dave Ramsey says this, we said, I'm going to say it again. We have this need to impress other people, so we buy things we do not need with money we do not have to impress people we do not like. Again, that doesn't happen here, right? Not in this church, but in other places that happens. Okay, so we end up spending money in things that we really do not need, right? So we talked about a little bit, why do we feel comfortable about speaking about these things on Sabbath? Because there's certain members of the church, I'm not talking about this church, other places I've been, that they tell me that because this is financial, because this has to do with money, it should not be spoken on Sabbath. It should be some other day. That's why this is here. There are over 2,350 verses in the Bible that talked about finances and possessions. And by the way, next Sabbath, okay, like call it a graduation present, or think of it as a graduation present, I'm going to bring a little USB with all these materials. Okay, I'm going to give you all this, the presentations, everything. The spreadsheet that I'm using, everything, I'm going to give them to you. If you're not here and you want it, just let me know, I'll get you one. In that USB is going to be a compilation of those 2,350 verses that Crown Ministries did. I didn't do it, but they did it. And they put all those verses together in one nice PDF. It's 200 and something pages long, and they're organized by subject. Okay, so you can go and look at it, and it's organized by subject. So we're not making it up. They exist, and I will give that to you. The Bible tells us that the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is what to the lender? Okay? Something to think about. Do we want to be a servant? Okay, and I asked last week, it said when somebody asks you, do you own your house? Do you? No, the bank does, until you finish paying, right? And if you don't believe me, stop paying and see what's going to happen. I said that last time, right? They'll repossess it in a heartbeat. So, most importantly, 1 Corinthians 7:23, you were bought at a price. Do not become slaves of men. Grace is free, yes. But what grace cost is not. The price to us is free, but what it cost, we cannot even imagine. So Corinthians is saying, you were bought at a price, very incredible price, so do not become a slave of men. And finally, Romans 13:8, owe no one anything except to love one another. Okay? Again, not making any of this up. That's in the Bible. Your Bible, my Bible is there. Real quick through this, managing our finances God's way requires a change of attitude. We cannot continue going through every sale that we can find and buying everything and think that things are going to change. Okay, our attitude has to change. And sometimes we cannot do it by ourselves. We need help. That's why we pray. We talked this morning about prayer too, but that's also what we have each other. Okay? And we don't have to go into details about what my financial situation is, but I can go to Michael and say, would you please pray for me? I'm going through a difficult situation. That's it. God knows what the situation is. I'm sure Michael will pray for me. Okay? And we're here to support each other. And I also offered, if you need help, okay, and you're comfortable enough, you don't have to, if you're comfortable enough, give me a call, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to sit down with you, complete confidence, and I will help you. Okay? So moving on. Spending can become an addiction. Spending, I say again, can become an addiction. You cannot control it, okay? And it requires rehabilitation. Our rehabilitation comes from God and from each other. We talked about money and possession, compete with God for first place. You know, we want God's help in everything, except on money. I think I've said this here before in one of the sermons. During the Crusades, they had to baptize all the people that were fighting, all the soldiers. And there were some that when they baptized them, they will keep their right hand out of the water. Because they said that was the hand that they used, where the sword, you know, that they used the sword. Said the whole body is for God, but this one, this is mine. I'm going to go kill people. Not sure that that's what they said exactly, but anyway, this is us, okay? We get baptized, and instead of the sword, it's the wallet. You know, everything is for God except this. I'm going to keep this one, okay? I'm going to manage this my own way. Even though we know that everything we have comes from where? It's from God. We are here simply managing what He has given us. Right? Moving on. Remember this? This is a test for the ones that were here last week. Okay. What goes here? Okay? These are things that are essential. Right? What goes on the next one? Things that, good job, guys. So proud of you. So there are things that are important. When we looked at things that are essential in our lives and things that are important, those becomes, oh, well, they're nice to have. And the last one is our luxuries, right? The essential and important we call our needs. And the others we called our wants. And I'm going to repeat this just so that it sinks in. If you're 4 years old and you come to your mom or dad and says, I need this toy, do they really? No, of course not. They want that toy. But at 4, they still don't know the difference. But when you're a grown adult, married with kids, and you're saying, I need this, when it's really a want, then there's a problem. You're not 4 anymore, right? And notice that I'm not talking about what things are essential and which ones are essential and important, nice to have, and luxuries, because that varies from home to home, okay? What is essential in my house may not be essential in somebody else's house, right? So I don't determine that for you. But you need to determine that for yourself and for your household. And until you know the difference between those two things, it's going to be very difficult to draw a line. This one here, you see it's thicker than the other one. Anyway, draw a line right there and say, you know what? These things can wait. Notice that I'm not saying you're not going to have them. They can wait until you are in a financial situation where you can afford them, right? You focus on this, and it gets to the point where you can have the others. Now, it is imperative, critical. Use the word, a word that appeals to you, right? Put it there. It is imperative that we understand the difference between those two things. Our needs and our wants. And I'm going to make a parenthesis here. That doesn't just apply to your households. That applies to the church. So if there's anybody here that has a leadership role, and I'm not talking about treasury, I'm talking about any leadership role. You need to understand the difference between needs and wants. How many times our leaders come to the pastor and say, Pastor, we need this for the church? Do we really? And again, I'm not determining what is the need and what is not. All I'm saying is sometimes we lose sight of what is a need and what is a want. And there are moments like right now our church is going through the process of buying a new church, right? So would this be the time to revamp our whole, and I shouldn't say this because I don't know if you guys are planning on doing that, and then I'm going to get in trouble, okay? So another church, let's imagine another church, not this one, right? Completely different. They're planning to buy another building or something or construct or whatever. And all of a sudden somebody says, you know what? We need to revamp our whole sound system. And we need to buy this $20,000, whatever the cost is, I have no idea, right? Sound system right in the middle of the process of moving to the new church. Am I saying don't buy the new sound system? No. I'm saying this may not be the time. We wait a little bit, we finish our first project, and then we move on to the next one. Because in the end, what are we here for as a church? It is to minister to others, right? I mean, to minister to the ones here as well. But we want to earn souls for Christ. Anyway, close parentheses. Before I get preachy, I don't want to get preachy, I want to talk about this. Now, last week we talked about several steps. And depending if you're studying, like if you're studying with Dave Ramsey, he has 7 steps, what he calls baby steps, okay? I have a few more simply because I'm adding something that are together on the other one just to make it easier for me to explain. Step 1 is understanding what God has given you. Step number 1. And for that, and by the way, Uncle Jimmy, thank you for your recommendation. This was called financial statement. And he suggested to use or to explain what that was, so I decided to just change the name altogether and make something that didn't sound so businesslike. So I'm calling it a financial status report. Okay, we're reporting on the status of our finances. I think that's a little easier to understand. So we want to look at all the cash that we have, right? So, not cash, I'm sorry, all of the assets that God has given us. And we make a list. And Ryan also suggested that I bring paper copies. I will give them to you in a USB, but in the meantime, Pastor, if you don't mind, I have only 25, so if you want to do one per family, and if there's other left, then you can give them to the, take others. So we looked at what God has given us, and we add all that. And you can see here, and you will see on the paper, what the options are. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in here because we covered this last week. But the second is we understand what our debt is. Again, this happens whether you are in a household, whether you are at church, whether you just graduated high school and you're going to college, okay? You want to know what is it that God has given us, what is on this side, what is the positive number on my finances, and then how much I owe. And then we subtract those two, and we would have what is our net worth. Notice the interesting choice of words here. This is financials. This is business. As far as the business is concerned, you are worth money. The difference between what you have and what you owe, that's what you're worth. We are Christians. What are we worth, really? Okay? If Jesus was willing to come and die for us, we are worth exactly, it's priceless. So this is not our net worth. But worrying about this number, especially if that number is negative, impacts our relationship with the one that died for you and me so we could be saved. And let's not lose track of that. Okay? Then we talked about understanding our expenses. I brought one for that too. Okay? Now, Pastor, if you don't mind, thank you. What is this for? Whenever you start working on this, okay, when you decide and you're serious about getting out of debt or simply understanding what your financial situation at home is, you take this little sheet that is being passed around and you said, okay, for the next month, I'm going to write everything that I am spending. Because one of the problems is we never know how much we spend. We have no idea, right? And we think we're spending this much when in reality we're spending this much. And we don't see it. But once you write it down, then it's easier to see. And what I recommend to people that are wanting to get out of debt is that first month, you can do it for 2, it's even better, because you get a better idea. But at least the first month, write everything. If it's cash, put it there. And if you don't want to carry this around, have a little notebook or on your phone or something, and you write it down. And you assign it a category. You know, it's food. And let's see who remembers. What is the evil empire? I say that jokingly, by the way. And the only reason I say that is because the amount of money that people spend on Starbucks is simply insane. And if you have the money, that's fine. But you don't have it, and yet you're spending whatever the cost of a cup of coffee is, you know, plus a muffin, okay? Every single day. So imagine for a second it's $10, that's $50 a week, that's $200. But you're drowning in credit card debt. Now what would happen, which we're going to talk about in a minute, if I take those $200 and I put it towards my credit cards? Okay, we're going to talk about that. And things starts to change. I'm not telling you never to go to Starbucks again. All I'm saying is sacrifice a little bit. Focus on your needs. Okay? Take something warm from home in the morning for a certain amount of time until you can get out of the hole. And then if you want to go back to Starbucks, that's between you and God. Chances are you probably will not want to, but, you know. If you cannot do it, then try reducing. Go twice a week. You see what I'm saying? Anyway, nothing inherently wrong with Starbucks. Any place that makes you spend an insane amount of money that you don't have, again, that you don't have, that's a key, right? Then that's a problem. Okay? So take a month, there's 31 days here, and you write it down. Everything you spend, you write it down, you write it down, you write it down. That's going to give you an idea of where your money is going. Actually, where God's money is going. And you will see how do you do in managing what God has given you. Does that make sense? Okay? It's very, very important. Now, this takes discipline. Not everybody's going to want to do it. But if you're serious about getting out of the hole in which you are, if you are, you may not be, right? This is important. You need to know. The next step is where we stopped last week, is establishing a budget. And that one, I did not print anything because this one's big, okay? And here, I'm going to show you real quick. And I'm going to read from Luke 14:28. Again, this is biblical. This is not Francisco making this stuff up. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Right? There's Jesus talking. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost? What does that mean, dear church? sit down and estimate the cost. Isn't that making a budget? So what? Right? So you sit down, you estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it. It's the same thing at home. You sit down, you look at what's coming in every month, you look at what potentially will be going out, and you see if you have enough money to finish the month. If you don't, you have to make changes. Because when you don't have enough money, where is the money coming from? Which is the reason we're here. It's coming from your credit card, or it's coming from it's debt. And then, here we are, okay? Ready? We open a credit card, we max it out. Then we go open another one. And he said, hey, use this one to pay the other one. And then you pay part of the other one. And then you go max them both out. And now you have no money to pay either one. So what do? You get a third one. I was talking to somebody this week. He had 26 different credit cards. I had never, it surprised me because he and I talked about finances quite a bit. And I thought I was making a dent until he told me he had 26. Now, he did tell me that he paid them all off, well, 24. So he goes like, I only got 2 left. So anyway, use one to pay the other, then go take, a equity loan against your house, and then you go further and get some personal loan, and you keep doing this number until you can't breathe anymore. Is that what God wants for us? I don't think so. He doesn't want us in that situation. Not now, not ever. Right? So we need to understand what this is. And let me, there we go. There we are. This is the spreadsheet that I will give you on the USB drive next week. And if you're not here next week, then you ask me and I'll make sure you get it. So it has 4 different tabs. The first one is the financial statement that you got a copy. The second one is the spending. So you can do it here and it will add this up for you. So let's say that, here's a $200 on Starbucks that we talked about, so it will add for you, okay? So you have that. And then there is this one that is the budget, and it has some fake numbers in there. This assumes that you make $60,000. Thank you. $60,000 a year, okay? So $5,000 every month, and that's your salary. In here, this particular budget is very detailed. You don't have to do this level of detail, okay? The only reason it's like that is because there's people that they're very detailed. So if they are, this works for them. If they're not, then you don't have to do this. But just to give you an idea, salary, income, other income, gifts that you receive, interest, if you get those, refunds, sometimes you get refunds for, something. When you add this, so you see here is 5,210, it will add it up here to your total income. You see it at the top? Okay, so I will tell you this is on a monthly basis. When you don't have a lot, and I, again, talk about graduates that are going to college, knowing how much money you're receiving and how much money you're planning to spend is very important. Unless you can call home and said, I run out of money, send me more. If that's the case, then ignore what I'm saying, okay? Now, if the parents are not willing to do that, right, then listen to what I'm saying, because you're going to have to make sure how your budget looks. Now, there are two different amounts. One is the money that you receive, the money that you spend that you have, I need to be careful how I say this, that you have committed to use. For instance, when you get paid, they will take federal income tax, they will take money for Medicare and Social Security, unless you're a teacher in Texas, which I just found out, you don't get taken out Social Security. They take the TSR or TRS? TRS, okay? Okay. So, but basically you replace one for the other, okay? Anyway, and sometimes there are other taxes, right? Those you have no control over. They're going to take them from your check, whether you like it or not. You control it a little bit depending on what you put on your W-4, thank you. But they will take it. Also, if you have committed to God to give your tithe and offerings, those are non-negotiable as well, right? So everything you put here on this first two sections is money that you have committed, some because it's government, okay? To Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's, okay? So this, let me go over here. This is God's part, and this is Caesar's part, right? That makes sense? Okay. Now, after that, then is what your living expenses are. This, you have a little more control over. And you probably will argue you don't have a lot of control over a mortgage, but you do. You can go to a smaller house with a smaller mortgage. May not like that, but you can. Right? So you do have control over it. I'm not suggesting now go sell your house and go to a smaller house. That's not what I'm saying. Okay? Please don't misunderstand. All I'm saying is you do have a little control over that. And there are other things. There are things for home insurance, property taxes, electricity, gas, utilities in general. Again, you don't have to do this level of detail. You can just put mortgage and utilities, and you're done. Okay? Make it simple. If making it complicated is going to make you not do it, then don't make it complicated. Make it simple. Okay? This is your budget to make. You have groceries, right? You decide how much you spend every month. You may have an auto loan, or 2, or 3, or 4. Okay? Or 5, depending on how many children you have and how many cars have you bought them, right? So there's fuel, insurance, so on and so forth. The point remains, there are a lot of options here, mostly to make you think of expenses that you may have during the month that you normally don't think about. Okay? Let me give you an example. When you look at your auto insurance, how often do you pay that? Once or twice a year, depending. Twice a year, right? Twice a year. Because you pay twice a year, I include myself, tend to not include it in our budget. Right? Because it's not every month. We call it monthly budget, so we only put the expenses that happen every month. But what happens? Then, halfway through the year, here comes the bill for the car insurance. And we have no money for that. Guess where that money's going to come from? Probably your credit card. Why? Because the insurance companies are very good at giving you the option of paying with a credit card. So you don't have any money, what are you going to do? Put on your credit card. Right? These are the things that we want to anticipate so that we don't get into that hole, right? We don't want to be there. We want to be out of that. Now, this is interesting. If it's only twice a year, how do I put it in my monthly budget? Yes. Uncle Jimmy.
You can ask the clerk or the one in charge how much my yearly premium. Divide it into 12. That's 1 month expense.
Okay. So you add it for the whole year and then divide it by how many months? By 12. And then what you do is that amount, you plug it in here. So now every month you're taking the part out. So when you get to have a year when you have to pay your bill, then you have the money. If you want to make it more interesting, that money, you put it into a savings account. Right now, and this is not a commercial for anybody, but Capital One and Apple, both savings accounts, are giving you 4.15. I don't know others because those are the two I have. 4.15. Interest, annual, and it's compound. So whatever you made this month, I'll get interest next month, and the other, and the other, and the other. You take that money and you put it there. It's making a little bit of interest until it's time to pay those bills. Okay? This morning we were talking about the parable of the talents. This is biblical. Investing our money so it grows, it is not a business idea. This is a biblical idea as well. Okay? We do it in the business world, but we also have support from the Bible to do that. Okay? If you have debt, you put them here. You know, clothing. How many of you think to put money aside for clothing every month? But then all of a sudden, your shoes break, you have to go buy new shoes, and where is that money coming from? We don't want that to happen. Are you following me? Are you seeing a pattern? It's the same thing. We forget to budget for certain things that we need. Okay? In other words, using the Bible verse, we're going to build the tower, right? And we sat down and we forgot half the things that we needed to buy. And we said, oh yeah, we have money to do it. And we start building the tower, and halfway through it, what happened? We don't have enough. Either we have to do the tower with less, in other words, cheaper materials, and you've heard the news about what happens. Remember that condominium that collapsed in Florida? Okay, why? They were using cheap material. Okay, and so on and so forth. We don't want that. We are Christians. We are managing God's resources. We have to be the example. I know that's a heavy burden to put on us, but it can be done. Okay, it can be done. And like I mentioned last time, you may fall. The secret to this is don't stay down. Get up and try again. It's like sin. I mean, who's not sinful here? I wish everybody would raise their hand. But we fall. We all fall at some point. But we are here because we don't stay down. We get up again. Right? So it's the same thing with the finances. Anyway, medical expenses. How many of you include medical expenses into your budget? And you're going to tell me, but Paco, I have no idea how much money I'm going to spend in the doctor. I understand that. Then put a little bit aside. So if you do have to go to a doctor, at least you have something saved. Does that make sense? Right? So look at the list and think about all these different things. Allowances, personal care, mani-pedi. Who puts that into the budget? Ah, you smile, huh? I know, right? But it's part of your expenses. You want to look good, right? Am I saying that there's something wrong with that? No, I am not. What I am saying is you need to budget for it, because that's going to come out of the amount of money that you're earning. It may not be every month, but it should go there. Education, Christmas. That's one of my favorite. Do you know how much money is spent in Christmas? Yeah, you do, because you've been here a lot of Christmases, right? Gifts, lights, trees, whatever. How many, don't raise your hand, just for you to think, how many of you budget throughout the whole year for that moment? So what happens? Christmas gets around, there's all this children and nieces and nephews and neighbors' kids and everybody. And of course, we have to buy everybody something. And you spend thousands of dollars in Christmas that were not budgeted. So what happens? Where does that money go? Okay. It's going to go to a credit card again. And it's a vicious circle. You stay in that circle and you don't come out of it. And I guarantee you that if you sit down and you look at all these categories, you're going to be surprised at how many things you spend that you do not budget for, or that you don't even think about budgeting for. You don't even think about it. It's just so normal. It's so completely normal. I'm going to tell you one which is just for you to think about. I live with this. You either buy a Brita filter, or you continue to buy boxes and boxes and boxes of bottled water. Think about that. And you're going to tell, but the bottled water is just $5. Okay? It's not a big expense. It's not a big expense when you have $5. But when you don't, $5 is a lot of money. Right? You see where I'm going with this? Now, I'm about to stop on this. This one is important. Very important. If you can, from every check, take no matter how little it is and put some money into a savings account and forget about it. Every single paycheck. If you cannot do $50, do 20. You cannot do 20, take 10. You cannot do 10, take 5. Take something and put it into a savings account and start building that savings account. Because there will be a moment, and again, we're going to talk about that in a moment, when you're going to need that. And it's better to have it when you need it than not the other way around. Right? Okay? Like I said, I don't want to go through every single category, but when you get this, please look at them and think. And if you don't want to do this every month, at least take the time once and say, this is how much money comes in, these are my expenses, and at least one time, see if you have enough every month from the money that is coming in to pay everything, all your expenses. Just check one time. I assure you, once you see the result of that, you'll be a little more encouraged to do this. Now, what this particular spreadsheet has that is interesting is it calculates the difference between the money that comes in, money that comes in, your total income, and your living expenses. And it tells you the difference. In this particular budget, this person needs another $339 to go through the month. because the expenses, the income is not enough to cover all the expenses. That is the exercise that I would like for you guys to do. Just, even if it's one time, okay? See how much. And see if that number is red or not. Now, what is even more interesting is if you look at the year-to-date difference, so this right here, let me highlight it, is the difference every month. But the one below it is how it accumulates. So this person that doesn't have 339 every month, at the end of the year, will be needing about $4,000 to finish the year. Where do you think that money is going to come from? You don't have to tell me anymore. Okay? It's going to be probably debt again. Unless you receive an inheritance, you know, or unless you have savings. If you have savings, sometimes you have to use them. Okay? And that's okay. That's okay. If you have them, you use them. The problem is when you need them and you don't have it. Because if I don't have any savings and I need to spend $4,000 more this year, that's going to come from some type of debt. Like I said, unless you receive an inheritance or receive money from somewhere else, right? A bonus at work or something. So these are things for you to think about and consider. Okay? So step number one, we're going to see what is our financial status. Right? That's step number one. I'm going to write there everything that we have, what's in checking, what's in savings, how much is a house worth, so on and so forth. We're going to put it all there. And then all of our debt. And these are balances. This is not monthly payments, but the balance. Okay? I owe this much for the visa totally, for this loan. And I'm going to see if I were to sell everything I have and pay all of my debt, would I have enough money? If not, the borrower is what to the lender? When you look at that number and you see that you owe more than what you actually have to pay, that's a problem. You need to get out of that hole. You need to get out of that hole. But you need to know first. So that's step number one. Step number two is knowing how much you spend on a monthly basis. So you're going to use the other sheet, and every month, every day for a month, you're going to say, okay, I spend this much, this much, this much, and you're going to look at the whole thing. Okay? Step number two. Then you're going to use that information, and you're going to create your budget. Okay? Now it's at the monthly level. Now, here's the problem. And this is the serious part. Oh, hold on. Let me go back to the presentation here real quick. Okay, we talked about that. Issues with budgeting. Number one, I don't know why I should do it, so I'm not doing it. Have you heard somebody say that? Why do I need to budget? I need to budget, so I'm not doing it. Normally, when you hear that, translation for that is, not in every case, but I am in debt up to my eyeballs, and I don't want to even deal with that. I don't want to know. It's like, you know when you're playing with a little kid, peekaboo, and they think when they cover their eyes that if they can't see you, you can't see them? Yeah, that's the game that we play with debt. Oh yeah, I don't see it. If I don't see it, they can't see me. Well, guess what? We're not little kids playing peekaboo. Debt can see you, and it would get you into a lot of trouble. Okay, so that's number one. I don't know why. Number two, my husband does not follow it, the budget that is, so why spend the time? Okay, and notice I mentioned the husband, because if I do it the other way around, get in trouble. Last week, by the way, parentheses again. Last week, somebody asked me, and this is a very important question, who should do the budget at home? Should it always be the husband? Should it always be the wife? Okay? And the real answer to that is the decisions are made by both. But the person that's going to actually manage all those numbers and all that is the one that feels more comfortable with numbers. It all boils down to that. Because if you give it to the other one that doesn't like numbers, it's not going to happen. Right? It's just not going to happen. You need to sit down. The decisions are made as a family. But then, the one that is more comfortable doing the numbers will go sit down and put it. You can do it in a computer, or you can do it in a piece of paper, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. Okay? Doesn't have to be computers. I'll give you the computer stuff, but it doesn't have to be. Okay? Whatever makes you feel more comfortable. Okay? So far, so good?
The kids enjoy, you can enjoy, let the kids attend, join.
Certainly, certainly. Yep. Unless you know that when you sit down with your wife to discuss this, it's going to be World War III. If that's going to happen, don't bring your kids into it. Unless you guys get some kind of agreement, then you can bring them. But you don't want to project the idea since they're little that finances is a reason to be fighting and to be, in disagreement. I mean, you can be in disagreement. There's no problem with that, as long as you get to a final decision between the two. But if you're going to be arguing, and it's best to wait until there is some kind of agreement and then bring them in. But is it a good idea to bring the kids? Yes, definitely. Right. So they start getting the idea, hey, doing this is a good thing. Okay? It is a good thing. I remember when I taught Alexandra the first time, and most of you know Alexandra is different, right? So she just went and decided she was going to create a pretend profile. She found herself a job. In her pretend profile, she made $20 an hour. She started looking for prices of apartments to see how much they cost. And she built her own budget. She was 14. You understand what I'm saying? There is nothing wrong with teaching your kids about this. On the contrary, that will help them out. Okay? You want to see something? Watch. I'm sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot. If I die, who's going to help you with the finances?
Sandra.
Okay? She tells me, if I'm not there, Alexandra's going to help. Okay? And Leilani has her budget too. Okay? But again, which one is more comfortable with it? Alexandra is. Right? Now, you ask her, she'll tell you, I don't do numbers. Yep. Her responsibility is to spend it. My responsibility is to make it and manage it. Well, she makes it too. So, anyway, moving on. The last one is, I do not like numbers. That is for accountants. Okay, so I'm not going to do it. You know what? Anybody can use a calculator nowadays. Right? So this is no longer an excuse. Well, I don't know Excel. Then don't use Excel. Grab a piece of paper and do it on a piece of paper. Okay? When I started doing my budgets back in the 1840s, there was no computers or anything like that to do this. I had a little notebook, and every month I would write down, this is what's going to come in, and this is what I plan to spend. This is what it left, and if I had that money left, then I put it on the next month as the beginning of it. Now the spreadsheets do all that by themselves. But you don't have to. Yes?
Yeah, you can buy columnar book at, until 24 columns, So you can buy that one in the store in the, office supplies, Office Max. So you can see in the column, that's the description of the expense, the description of the date, what kind of trip or what are you doing, and then you can put in every column what kind of expense are you doing. So it's easy, it's not hard.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't want to mention that because I didn't know if they existed. And obviously they do. They still, you know. And the reason I say that is there's so many computers everywhere, right? But, you know, we still get those. Good. So, next step. We talked a little bit about this last time. And the next step is, and you're going to say, well, can I start immediately paying off my debt if I get a little money extra? The answer to that is no. The first step should be to save at least $1,000. If you're in college, $500. Okay? Why? Why? Number one, if something breaks, in this example, the dryer, right? And you don't know how to fix it, if you know how to fix it, probably not an issue. But if you don't know how to fix it, and you need to find somebody to come fix it, or you need to buy a new one, and you don't have any money saved, where is the money to buy that dryer going to come from? Don't tell me anymore. Okay? You see what I'm saying? But most likely, it's going to be additional debt because you don't have the money to do that. And believe me, emergencies will happen. Okay? Have you ever prayed and you said, God, help me to be patient? And when you pray that, it seems like everybody in the world is getting under your skin. You know, it's like they're testing you to see if you're actually passing the test. Okay? Same thing here. When you make that decision to get out of debt and to start walking, you know, the right way, it's like everything happens. That's when the car breaks. That's when the dryer breaks. That's when you need to change your, you know, whatever, the sink gets clogged up. And if you are Michael here, he fixes it himself. But if you're me, I have no idea. I do computers. I can do that. And I have tried to exchange computer work for plumbing work. It didn't work. I had to pay. So anyway, now, how do I get that $1,000 to start? Number one, you can do a garage sale. Okay? There's a bunch of junk that we have at home sometimes, right? Maybe not in your houses, sorry. I shouldn't presume of knowing that you had junk in your house. But some houses do. Stuff that you don't need, you can sell. You can get a part-time job, right? Or you can get a side job. I read a story when I was studying with Dave Ramsey of this gentleman that he wanted to get out of debt. And he had a nice job, but just to earn a little more money, he started delivering pizzas. You know, started delivering pizzas. Not only did he get out of debt, he enjoyed it so much that after he was out of debt, he continued delivering pizzas. Okay, according to the story. So what I'm saying is, if you're serious about this, if you don't want to be in that hole anymore, if you want to have a breather, or like I mentioned at the beginning, if you don't want this to get in the way of your relationship with God, you need to take action. You have to do something. And we'll talk about that also. You can tutor. Maybe there's something that you know that you're good at that nobody else does. Okay? Maybe you can do tutoring and earn a little extra. The point is, you're going to do something, you're going to spring into action, and you're going to get your first $1,000. Okay? Now, the next step, after you have your $1,000 for emergencies, now you're going to tell me, what if the emergency is more than $1,000? If it's more than $1,000, it is more than $1,000. This is not perfect, right? That is just a start. But the point is, once you have something stored, then you start paying off all your credit cards. Okay? Remember, the borrower is slave to the lender. We don't want to be in that situation. We just don't. Now, there are two schools of thoughts. Okay? And this section right here is the last section for today. There's two schools of thoughts. One is the snowball method. The snowball method says, whatever money that you receive extra, whether that money is from a side job, whether that money is the $200 that we are saving from the Starbucks that we are buying every morning, right? Or whatever. You look at your expenses and you said, okay, I can cut here, I can cut here. You know, maybe instead of going out to lunch every day and spending $15, $20, maybe I can bring food from home. It's going to be cheaper, right? I don't want to do it every day, then I do it 3 times a week. The thing is, you start saving, okay? You start cutting here and there. That money that you save, you start using it to pay your smallest credit card. Smallest, I mean the balance, okay? So the smallest balance. You have one that is 2,000, one that is 5, one that is 10. You're going to go after the 2001 first. That's one school of thought. Okay? On the others, you're going to keep paying the minimum payment. And you're going to put everything you can into your small one. Because by doing that, what's going to happen? You're going to get rid of that one, because it's the smallest one. So it has the better chance of eliminating first. And whatever you were paying towards that one, now you're going to put it all together, plus the minimum payment that you were giving, and you're going to start paying it against the second biggest. And you keep doing that number until you get rid of all of them. That is the snowball method, okay? Because it just snowballs, right? Now, one of the advantages of this method is psychological, okay? It's not financial. It's really psychological. Because you finish paying one, that is a win for you. Okay? So I did something. And by the way, when you do, save a little money aside and go to dinner or something and celebrate. You paid off a credit card, go celebrate it, go enjoy it. Okay? Because you're not going to, you know, the idea is not to be miserable either. Okay? But you go and celebrate. Of course, please, don't go and spend $250 in a dinner. Okay? Right? Because we're trying to... That defeats the whole purpose, right? I'd be mean and say, go to Taco Bell or Sonic or something. The point is, go celebrate, okay? You decide how. Anyway, so that's one method, okay? The second method is what is called the avalanche method, okay? This one is different in the sense that you pay off your debt, your credit card with the highest interest. Not the one with the smallest balance, but the highest interest. Why? Because you save more money, right? The one that has the highest interest is the one that is sending more money to the bank, okay? Which, by the way, parentheses again, we have no issue, and I don't mean we here, right? People in other churches. This church, people don't do that, Pastor, right? People have no issue paying 22, 26% interest rate on their credit cards to the bank. No issue whatsoever. But don't talk to them about paying 10% tithe. You see where I'm going with this? It's okay to take more than double and send it to the bank on interest, because I could not wait to buy this a little longer, but I will not put 10% that already belongs to God and put it in the church. So now you think about that for a second, and you tell me and I'm not asking you to tell me, just, figuratively, you tell me where our priorities are. Okay? Where our priorities are. So, avalanche method, you take your highest interest, you pay that first. The problem is, that may be the biggest one, right? That may be the biggest one. And if you attack that one first, yes, you're going to save more money in the end, but it may take longer. So again, psychologically, you may get discouraged along the way because it takes too long. There's no wins. So to do this, you need to be very disciplined. Okay? And to tell you the truth, and with all due respect, if you were disciplined, you wouldn't be in this mess to begin with. Right? So, if you study with Crown Ministries or you study with Dave Ramsey and so on and so forth, they will always recommend that you use the snowball method. Okay? So that you have quick wins. Well, I say quick, depending on what the balance is, right? But your wins are faster. You go celebrate at Sonic or Taco Bell. No $250 dinner. And that's what they are. And that's what they are, right? That way you see results faster and you get encouraged to continue and do the next one and the next one and the next one. Okay? Now, you can also do a combination of the two. Okay? And, very creatively, this is called the combination method. When do you do the combination method? The combination method is done, let's say that you receive some money. Okay, let's say you get a bonus from work. Okay, you did good, you did performance, or they want to keep you at work. Sorry, Pastor, I know that doesn't happen for you. Or for me, or for teachers, But there are other, places where it does. You get a little money, and then what you do is with that, you go after the one with the highest interest and start bringing that one down. But continue the snowball, right, for the lowest one with your monthly payments. But if you get any extra money or you went and you did, another garage sale and you got, but a little, you can put into the one with the highest interest because the sooner you get rid of that one, the more money you have left. Because obviously the more interest you pay, the more money you're sending to the bank and not keeping in your account. Okay? So, now, let me stop here. Questions? I know I've talked a lot. Yes. And then...
Instead of the monthly payments, you're not referring to the minimum monthly payments.
Okay. What is the question?
You are saying to do the monthly payments like the snowball one.
Right.
Keep with that. You're not referring to the minimum monthly payments.
Okay. So you do the minimum on all of your cards but one, right? So you take your smallest balance on the snowball, you take the smallest balance, and you put as much as you can into that one. So let's say you get a side job, right? And you're making an extra $200 a month, just to say a number, right? Those 200 plus the minimum payment goes against your smallest balance. On the others, you keep paying your minimum payment until you finish that one. Let's say that your minimum payment on that small one was $25, let's say, and you were putting $225. Now, when you pay that one off and you go to Taco Bell, then you come back and you go to the next one and you take those $225 plus the minimum payment of that one, let's say was another $25, and now you take $250 and you put it into that one. And you keep doing that until you finish that one. Now you have $250 left, plus whatever the minimum payment was, and then you keep doing that, and that is a snowball effect. Okay? Does that make sense? Thank you for asking. Okay? Yes.
There's other scenario. It happens in our life, okay, in my life. We have a mortgage in our bank at 7.5 mortgage balance. And then my banker called me that, oh, Jimmy, there's a home equity loan for 3.7. Okay, that's good. I'll jump to that. So I went there. So it was refinanced from 7.5 to 7 plus. So what I did, I borrow from the home equity. I pay it to the biggest interest credit card that I have. So it was so quick. If you have that money available with a lower interest rate that you save, you can put it in the highest interest rate. That's the fastest way.
Thank you. Very good. So, any other question about snowball, avalanche, or budgets, or anything? Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's about credit cards because I use credit card because I use it to pay for. It's not really to pay. I use that credit card to earn points. I know you mentioned it before. I was listening to your presentation even though we weren't here, but I forgot. But I've been doing it for more than 10 years. That I never had, the bank haven't had any interest on me but instead I got a lot of points staying on a fancy hotel because I used that credit card. Is it wrong or how, because I know whenever I see the credit card, it is in the same bank account that we're using, and I saw how much I've been using on that credit card. So I don't know what is your... And I paid it every month. Like if there's a due, I paid it the next day, so it will not take interest on my...
So I'll answer the question in there first, and then I'll talk a little bit about that, okay? The question was, is it wrong? No. So let me start right there, okay? Now, people like Virgie, you don't want in these meetings, okay? Because they're a bad influence to the rest. No, I'm just kidding, just kidding. Let me clarify that statement. It was joking, by the way. Here's what happens. There are people that are very disciplined, okay? If you are disciplined, there is no problem with having a credit card. I have a credit card. My credit card, actually, it is scheduled to be paid in full at the end of the month. I don't even look at it. It is scheduled. At the end of the month, it pays the whole balance, never pay interest, okay? The bank takes care of it, no problem. Mine is all different. I don't get points. I get money. That money is put into a savings account, which has a 4.15 interest rate, okay? Now, the issue is not if it's a good thing or a bad thing. You need to look at yourself in the mirror, okay? And you need to be honest with yourself. Can you do that? And the answer for some of you is going to be no. But you need to be honest with yourself. If you cannot do it, then you don't want to have your credit card. Again, the friend I was talking to this week, just to give you an example, 26 credit cards, paid them all off, and he's telling me that he's already using 2 more, and maybe I will use a Target one too, and I can already see that before too long, he's going to have a balance on some of them. Because there is no financial discipline. If you don't have it, don't do it. Period. Okay? Now, you're going to tell me, well, what if somebody gets my... So I would recommend use your debit card, right? And you say, well, what if somebody gets my debit card number? Okay? It takes a while, not a while, but it takes a few days for them to put the money back into your account, and maybe you need that money. Okay? It's not like the credit card that simply they don't, as long as it's been disputed, it doesn't count towards your interest. But your debit card, whatever money was taken out of your account, it takes 2 or 3 days to put it back, okay? So that's one of the reasons that most people said that's why I use credit cards. Okay, if you have to do it, then try to find one that has a scheduled payment at the end and have it paid completely at the end. Of course, you have to make sure you have the money to pay for that, right? But we're assuming that whatever, if you're going to get into a plan like this, you have the money to pay for the money that you're spending because you'll be on a budget and so on and so forth. Okay? So, short, no, it's not wrong. Okay? But if you do not have the financial discipline to do it, don't use them. Don't. Okay? If you go home and you know that you have 10, 15 credit cards, or even 5 or 6, that's too much. Okay? That's way too much. And if you look at it, you have them all maxed out, that's too much. And then the banks will come and say, hey, you know what? Listen to this, my church family. This will help your credit score. You cannot pay for gas, but yeah, your credit score is great. That makes no sense. You understand? So my credit score may not be the highest one, but I have no debt. So what's better? And I'm not talking about me. I was saying that statement, let's say that your credit score is a little lower, but you have absolutely no debt and you have money saved into your accounts. So what if your credit score is a little lower? Okay? And we can talk about credit score some other day, but not here. That's okay? So, any other question about credit cards? Yes. Question?
This is for further enlightenment to all the brethren here. Yeah, it comes to my life that I have a good credit score. So, the lots of enticement, devil's way. The credit card companies bombarded me lots of credit cards, no interest for 1.5 years. So I go into that in that route. I borrowed it. I paid to the highest interest like that. So I saved, but I was so disciplined that I need to pay the monthly payment until it's fully paid. So there's no problem if you move to another source of income. If it is no interest, it's not a sin. It's no arithmetic there, So use your mind, use your common sense what to do. If there's no interest rate for 1.5 years, are you not going to can save for that particular offer? You can, okay?
Allow me to disagree with you, 100%. I hear what you're saying, you're not wrong, but I will disagree with you 100%. I'll tell you why. The reason I disagree is because most people that are in a lot of debt is, again, because they don't have the financial discipline, which means if they take another credit card, even if it's to pay the one that they had at a highest interest, pretty soon they're going to have the one that they got maxed out and they're going to back to the other one as well. Understand? Understand. And if, right, and in that I agree. Like I said to Virgie, if you have the financial discipline to do it, by all means, okay? If you have the discipline, do it, okay? But my message is to those that do not, right?
So there is a question here. Right now, I don't have savings, and I can't even pay off 100% of my debt. So how can I start saving when I cannot even zero my debt?
So here's what you should think about. When you have debt, you're going to be paying interest that is going to go to somebody else. Probably higher than the money that you're making in your savings account. Okay? If you think about it, it's probably higher. Okay? So if you are giving away, let's call it that, because it's what it is. If you're giving away the interest that you're paying on your debt to somebody, just to keep money in your savings account and you're receiving less, let's say you're receiving 3% on your savings account, but you're paying 5% on your debt, you're losing 2%. If you have the money on your savings to pay this, by doing that alone, you already saved 2% on the interest of your debt. You see what I'm saying with this?
It's better to get the savings first. For savings, then pay.
Right. Now, that said, let's say you have a car, and the car was at 1.9%. And right now, in savings, they're giving you 4 let's say 4 to make it simple, right? So now you're making more in interest than what you're paying for your car. I would keep paying the car and let the money in savings to continue because I'm earning 2% more here. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? The idea is try to maximize what you are receiving. Okay, try to maximize what you're receiving. Eventually, you continue to pay your debt until it's gone. But if you have any that has an interest that is higher than what you're making in savings, pay it off. If you have them, pay it off. Because you're losing money in the process. Okay? Any other question? Liam, would you pass that back?
My sister in Louisiana is an example. She will say, before you buy, you save first. And the co-workers are, you have a new car again. And they will just answer, well, I save first before I buy. And that's the reason why. In the 1980s, you see, we came here in 70, I came here in 76. In the 1980s, she said to us, Manong, what's Manong in Korea? We paid our house already. You see that? How smart she is.
Thank you. You know, my daughter, Leilani, the oldest, she just went into the workforce. It blew my mind the amount of correspondence that she gets, and you've seen it, to open a credit card account. It's almost daily. Almost daily. She doesn't have any. But on a daily basis, okay? Let's say weekly, to not exaggerate. On a weekly basis, she's getting correspondence to open a credit card. And I'm sure if that's her that just entered the workforce, that's happening to all of us, because I get a bunch too, okay? And the people that work for the marketing department of these firms are geniuses. You read this thing, and it's like you're sinning if you don't do it. I'm exaggerating for effect, but you understand what I'm saying. That is not the case. You don't have to do it. I don't open them anymore. I just shred them, okay? Because now I know better. But there was a time when I was young, and I got my very first, I remember, offered to do American Express Gold. Oh my word, that was like, I already became royalty because I had an American Express Gold. And of course, immediately I went and applied for it, and they gave it to me. But you see what I'm saying? You guys have this information, but for people that do not, they end up with 26 credit cards all maxed out. Paying anywhere from 16 to 25% interest. And the banks, of course, the banks will bend over backwards to give you whatever you want, so you don't close the account. And if you don't believe me, try to close a credit card account. Call them up and try to close one. You will see how many offers you get in that phone call, so you won't close it. Okay? Because they're not losing, they're making a ton of money. Even if you pay it at the end of the month, all it takes is 1 month you missed. Because they're going to come back and charge you all that interest. They do not lose. It's like going to a casino. The house always wins. Okay? And I told you I wasn't always a Seventh-day Adventist. I didn't play in the casinos, but as a programmer, I did write a computer program to keep track of the earnings of the big players in the casinos. The formula for this assume that the house always wins. And it even gave you a percentage of what the house was going to make. Credit cards, even worse. And please understand, I'm not saying that if you have a credit card, you're doing anything wrong, okay? What I'm saying is, if you do not have the financial discipline, the credit card, and by saying that, then you're thinking I'm undisciplined. That's not what I'm trying to say either. What I want to say is, if credit cards are getting you into debt more and more and more every month, it is time to get out. Dave Ramsey has a saying that says, when you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, then you're going to take this seriously. Okay? It will get to a point that you just don't want to do this anymore. When that happens, get serious about it. I am providing you with the tools. Look at what you have. Okay? Look at what you're spending. Create a budget. The budget is critical for the church as well, right? It's not just for the house. For the church, it's the same thing. We need, the budget is like a map. Well, all the younger ones don't know what a map is. It's like a GPS, okay? Kidding. I remember the days when we had to open that big old paper and try to figure out, and if things change, you had no idea where you were going. Regardless, budget is that. It's your map. It is, this is where I am, this is where I'm going. Okay? Every month, you're looking at where you're going. And the idea is that eventually, you're going to be comfortable enough that you don't have to worry about any of this. Okay? You don't have to worry about having $1,000 in the bank in case something breaks, because you have $20,000 in the bank, and if something breaks, you don't worry about it. Just take it from there, and then you replenish it. Okay? And when you get to that point, you can breathe easy. Any other question? Okay? Next week, we're going to wrap up by talking about this. Once we start with only 1 month, but then we're going to talk about how to save more and why. Okay, so we're going to get into this. We're going to look at it. We are going to move from credit cards. I know I've beaten credit cards a lot, okay? But today, in the U.S. economy, that is one of the worst culprits of getting people into debt. So that's why I'm hitting that so hard. And I hope here you don't have that problem. I really hope so. I really hope I spend the whole afternoon talking for no reason. Okay? Or probably so you can go help somebody else.
Excuse me. Is there wisdom of smaller, like one credit card is better than two? Is there wisdom on that?
Not really. Not really. I'm going to use this as an example. Virgie's case, she may have one credit card that gives her rewards at 1.5% on some things and gives her 2% on some other things. So she may want to have both, right? Because when she buys this thing, she buys it with the one that gives her 2%. And when she buys this thing, she does, this one doesn't do anything else, maybe 1%, but this one gives her 1.5%. So may want to have two for reasons like that. But honestly, one is more than enough, probably too much, but no, I haven't. Just for your credit score.
When you pay off a credit card and you close the credit card, your credit score will go down. So it's like a torture, like they make you have it so that you can have good credit score. So what we did is we have one credit card and it's not used, but it's there for the credit score. And keep it open for the credit score, but you have to be like Virgie. pay it off if you use it, and don't run interest on it. And it's just for your credit score, no more than that. And he probably...
So one of the good things, so a couple minutes about credit score, is that there are plenty, not plenty, but there's some new banks that are giving you information on the credit score, and they tell you these are the things that make up your credit score. If you do this, you know, for instance, how long have you had a credit line opened? Okay, that counts. Or what is the ratio between what you owe and the total that you have available? All those things. And they explain to you what they are. So you can look at it and you can say, okay, if I, like in my friend's case, he goes like, well, I have 26. I don't know if I should close them because then my credit score going to go down. And I go like, no, because they're all zero. Because they're all zero, the one that you want to keep is the one that has been opened the oldest, because that's what counts. The ratio of how much you have compared to what you owe is zero, because he paid them all off. So it doesn't matter if he closed them. So those things you need to keep an eye out for, right? But there are plenty of tough stuff that explains how that works and what you can do. So just keep an eye out on that. Anyway, so again, we're going to close next week with a little more savings, what to do with other debt that is not credit cards. We're going to give credit cards a break next week. We're going to talk about, you know, personal loans. We're going to talk about student loans. We are going to talk about mortgages. And then once you are through with all that, because the goal is to have no debt, right? We're going to talk about auto loans as well. I have some interesting information on that. And then we're going to wrap it up with adding a little more savings, okay? And I will show you one of my favorite graphs that presents what happens if you start saving young and stop versus somebody that starts late and continues to invest up to retirement age. And I will compare to you the numbers on both situations so you can see how important it is to start saving early on for the younger generation presented here. I wish I had seen that graph when I was in my 20s. I really wish. Okay? Because I've always saved, but when I was younger, you know, you don't want to save that much. You want to spend, you want to enjoy, you want to travel, you want to do so many things. But I wish I would have seen that. So I want to show you guys that. It's never too late, right? But the earlier you start, the better off you will be. Okay, so we'll talk about that. Very good.
Thank you. Let's give hands to Brother Paco. So we are so blessed. Before Mike will say a prayer, I'd like to thank you all for coming. And this is really a thing that needs spiritual discernment and prayer. And because this time that we are living, we really need to have that deep understanding by God's grace, because it's an eye-opening. And thank you for being interested in this, because it's something that affects our relationship with Jesus, because it's in Revelation 13. The finances also brings down many of God's people. So we have also to be sensitive and be careful that how to manage our finances, because it reflects the master, that God is the owner and we are only his steward. As the word we heard last time, when we consider God is the owner, every decision that we make is spiritual, right? So if God is the owner of everything and we are only his steward, the created being, every decision, finances, home decision, social decision, any decision we make each day, every waking moment, is a spiritual decision. So this is really, thank you. We are so blessed to have you. You're big help to us and awareness and much all. We'll have this homework here. We'll try our best to pass this homework. We'll not fail. We'll keep this homework. What God has given and what we owe. And we'll see the numbers because it says numbers doesn't tell a lie, right, Mike? The numbers doesn't tell a lie. It will always tell the truth. So we'll figure out by God's, we will be helping and praying one another. There's one more here. You want more paper? Yeah,
That's a different one.
different one.
I meant to give it to you, forgot. That helps.
So invite more friends or people, you know. If you have some friends who need some, Brother Francisco is willing to help for financial consult, you know, or planning to get married or families have some struggles. We need help, you know. So this is also very helpful spiritually. Well, okay. Shall we all rise and have our prayer?
Let's bow our heads. Our Heavenly Father, we'd like to praise you and thank you for the financial guidance that was gleaned from the Holy Word, O Lord, presented by Brother Pollock. We'd like to praise you because you have given us this opportunity to have this kind of seminar so we can be equipped and informed. Most especially, O Lord, help us to be disciplined steward of yours so that we may maximize, O Lord, the use of what you have entrusted into